Oh, Holy Shit by R.P. Madison. I was 6 months into my 19th year. The smoke from 9/11 was still clearing in New York, and unpacked boxes still clogged the derelict corners of my first apartment. Despite the cultural and personal strife, I managed to find some time and energy to put up my first adult Christmas tree. 4 feet tall, festooned with multicolored lights, homemade ornaments featuring Neil Gaiman characters, stills of Juliette Lewis, and doll parts. Topped with a styrofoam head wearing a disco glitter hat, it sat behind our carpeted kitchen table. Yeah, we ate breakfast at a terracotta-colored round carpeted table, which really does deserve its own story. On the wall behind all this, hundreds of Post-it notes were stuck haphazardly. Each yellow piece of paper had a message or small drawing. The Post-it wall was the result of an obsession with Romy and Michelle's high school reunion and a persistent drinking game. Set into this mess was a massive poster featuring the Hammers from Pink Floyd's The Wall in full march. We weren't exactly minimalists, subscribed to Better Homes and Gardens. For $650 a month, my best friend, let's call her Nanda, her soon-to-be ex, let's call him Glenny, and I rented a 2-bedroom hovel on the 3rd floor of an atrocious building. The 2-bedroom part was a stretch, as it was more like a 1-bedroom with an oversized closet. 20 years later, the $650 for an apartment of any size sounds like fantasy. But even historical perspective does not diminish the fact that they were overcharging even then. This place was the kind of exaggerated dump you see in movies. Just a small list of our findings upon moving in: bloodied, rusty razors in the bathroom cabinet, a bag of cocaine in the pantry, baseball-sized holes in the ceiling, and stained, warped paneling all around us. It was our first home. I can't say that we loved it, but we loved that we had it. The dynamic of our living situation was perfect for a bunch of kids straight out of high school. We were on the top floor, and Glenny's family lived beneath us, which meant we could be as loud and stupid as possible, and we often were. Our parties were messy and attended by a familiar circle of punky, gothy riffraff, alongside all manner of other random local degenerates. Our apartment became a kind of lower-class melting pot, an Ellis Island of underage drinking and drug experimentation. Among these partygoers was occasionally AJ, Glenny's thuggish younger brother, who I had a hopeless crush on. He was that rough and sweet kind of brute who wasn't put off by my inherent morbid queerness, which made him endlessly attractive. Our worlds were eons apart, and even if they weren't, he had a live-in girlfriend who took up most of his attention. He was a mistake I couldn't even hope to make. So, it was the 3 of us, and a rotating cast of guest stars. Nanda had a full-time gig as a florist, I had a full-time gig as a craft store department manager, and Glenny was a clerk at an independent porn shop. He worked the 3rd shift until about a month after we moved into our apartment. Then the smut hut closed. It wasn't ideal, but Nanda and I managed to keep everything afloat while Glenny looked for a new job that he never actually found. The 2nd bedroom in this place was really just a large closet. We decided that my bedroom would be an undefined space which connected said closet, the bathroom, the proportionate bedroom, and the rest of the apartment. This meant that if anyone had to use the bathroom or get to Nanda and Glenny's room, they had to go through mine. Not ideal, but I was not exactly setting the sheets on fire. And on the rare occasion that I did have a bedmate, we usually found ourselves at their place. It was one night in late December that I was alone in that bed, which was just a pull-out couch I had willingly decided to use as my main place of rest. I was due to be up early the next day and wasn't thrilled when a smell roused me from a deep sleep. I remember staring at the oversized Bjork posters tacked up to the partial slant of the ceiling as I slowly filled with rage. I glanced at my digital clock and audibly groaned when I saw it was nearly midnight. What the fuck is he cooking that smells so bad, and why is he up cooking this late? I thought. I could hear Glennie milling about, which led me to assume he had burned something awful. Anger propelling me up, I stalked out into the living room where Glennie was sort of just lingering. What the fuck are you cooking that smells so bad? I yelled at him. I'm not cooking anything. I'm trying to find out what that is. He snorted the air, looked around, and continued sniffing. Oh. Immediately, all frustration with Glennie dispersed, and I joined him in smelling around our poorly laid out living room. Quietly, we moved around in search of the stench's source. The only sound came from our nostrils, and the only light came from the chaotic Christmas tree in the corner. Ugh, that is really bad, Glennie said, pulling his black pinhead t-shirt up over his face. Yeah, it's getting worse. And it was. Each moment that passed, the unnameable smell intensified. I'm gonna go see if my mom is up, he said, then went out the door. I found a bandana and tied it around my face, then decided to see if the smell had woken Nanda up. I went to her bedroom, where she was already beginning to stir. Hey, you up? I whispered. What is that smell? Were her waking words. Her face scrunched up into a disapproving scowl as she got out of the bed. She laughed slightly at the sight of my covered face, but soon found her own temporary protection against the increasing foul odor. Resuming the hunt with our noses, we came up with no answers. Despite the cold, I decided that opening a few windows was the only immediate solution. As my fingers found the lock, I heard a frantic voice from outside. What the fuck is that? I pushed the window open and saw that 3 floors down, AJ was standing in nothing but his boxer shorts, yelling up and pointing frantically at me. Suddenly, I was a princess in her high vinyl-sided tower, and here was my strapping savior. I threw the screen open and craned my body out the window into the frigid night. Oh, hi, AJ! I beamed, the words bubbling out of me 5 octaves higher than natural. AJ was screaming, but I was not comprehending anything but my own hormones. His naked torso, bathed in the parking lot's fluorescent light, had clogged all of my senses. For a few seconds, I actually believed he was down there, trying to get my attention with some romantic gesture. I was a 19-year-old virgin, okay? Give me a break. Shit! He screamed, clearly trying to get through to me. What? Huh? What's wrong? Crestfallen, it finally hit that his being out there had nothing at all to do with me. Shit! His pointing became more frantic, and I realized he wasn't pointing at me. Directly below our living room window was AJ's bedroom window, and a dark brown liquid was slopping out of it. What the hell is that? Shit! He screams, spilling. It's shit! It's shit! Oh, God. It was at this moment that Glennie rushed back into the room to explain the disaster that was still taking place 1 floor down. It's a geyser of sewage. It's everywhere. The Christmas gifts are floating in it. A sewer pipe had backed up. Raw sewage was literally flooding the apartment beneath ours. Since the building was on a slant, it all eventually ended up funneling into AJ's bedroom. Oh my God. Nanda looked at me, then we both slowly walked towards the door. The staircase leading up to our place was a half spiral which ended at the landing that overlooked the landing of the hall below. Streaks of brown had already formed down there. So what do we do? We have to get out of here. The firemen are evacuating us. Firemen? What are they going to do? I asked snidely. Quickly, we found our shoes and coats, then carefully crossed the river of feces. It was cold outside, and the firefighters looked about as bewildered as we were. They knocked on the door of the tenant below Glennie's family's, but got no answer. She was away for Christmas, but when she did arrive home, it would be to a caved-in ceiling and her entire world covered in old, drying poop. Somehow, our apartment was spared, and we hosted Glennie's family for the holidays while the hazmat crews worked diligently to clean up the impossible mess. I would have been thrilled to have AJ for so much concentrated time, but his girlfriend was along for the ride. Props to her in retrospect for sticking it out. I wouldn't have given it any other chance. There were not enough candles in the building to mask the reek, but we ended up burning piles of Post-it notes just to make it smell differently. Snuggled in, our noses plugged with tissues, we talked the night away by the light of our chaos tree and saucepans full of burning paper. Soon after this incident, Nanda and I decided to leave that place. And by the following spring, we were gone. Glennie didn't come with us to apartment number 2, opting instead to stay there with his family after Nanda broke up with him. The only thing I missed about that literal shithole was AJ's tendency to randomly visit without a shirt. The following December was a different kind of eventful, with life-altering repercussions, just not as stinky. Amidst the strain of holidays, I always try to remember, no matter how bad it can get, this was maybe not the worst, but literally the shittiest Christmas we ever had.